To me, Auburn's game against Oklahoma seems far more winnable now than it did a few months ago.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into this special crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Sooners. Hello to all the everydayers. For Locked On Auburn, I'm Zach Blackerby. For Locked On Sooners, he is Jay Smith, of course. Locked On Auburn, Locked On Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This matchup in week 5, I mean, both teams circled it as soon as the schedule came out. But for whatever reason, since SEC Media Days, there's been some jawing back and forth between the fan bases, Jay. I think Auburn is excited to welcome Oklahoma into the SEC, and I think Oklahoma is excited to say, yes, we belong in the SEC.
Absolutely. For us, it's, of course, an honor to join such an exclusive club, right? You know, as a longtime SEC fan of 1 month, you know, it feels great to see that we're now in a home that actually respects us, except for a lot of the teams are starting to talk, a lot of jawing in, a lot of noise is being talked right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the talk towards Oklahoma is, well, y'all aren't Texas. And so we're going to treat y'all a little bit different, which I'm sure y'all are just super thrilled about. I'm totally used to at this point. But I mean, the storyline about Oklahoma, and you came on the show and we did a thing, you know, during SEC Media Days.
Yep.
But the storyline from the outside looking into Oklahoma, and this is kind of the potential mismatch that Auburn folks are looking at in this week 5 matchup, is this offensive line is brand new, and this quarterback's first road start is going to be at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And that's not a favorable thing on the Oklahoma side of this matchup.
No, it's true. And so for us, especially for Oklahoma in general, this will be the first in-conference game where we go to a stadium with over 80,000 seats, probably in about 14 years. Probably last time was Texas A&M, because Nebraska has about over 80. A&M had over 80 at the time. They're the last two that Oklahoma, just as fan bases and as an institution, had to go in conference. Now, granted, we've been to the Horseshoe, we've been to Neyland Stadium, right? We've been to some places, but we've never had to do it in conference. So it's going to be different. I think the first couple of years, there'll be the adjustment period, but I think that it's really going to be more of a challenge when teams really start to get to know each other, right? Mm-hmm. I think the big difference for me in the conversation, and let me preface this for my Auburn brethren out there here in the SEC. Let me explain kind of where I was coming from when we were talking about the matchup. Understand this, right? What Auburn fans heard was, in their minds, is that Hugh Freeze sucks, Auburn's going to get blown out, and Oklahoma's just going to run things. That's what Auburn fans heard.
Jay,
but that's not what was said.
What did you actually say? Like, quote yourself if you don't mind.
What I actually said is that Hugh Freeze is in year 2 of redoing things there at Auburn. He's cleaning up things, and he's doing a great job.
Sure.
Peyton Thorne has kind of regressed since his big year at Michigan State, and I know that there's questions there and concerns.
Sure.
But you have you got quarterbacks in the stable that's going to get there. But Freeze has done a fantastic job of adding skills position guys. Mm-hmm. The defense is still getting revamped and getting there. But to me, I mean, you brought in with Charles Kelly as the defensive coordinator who just left, Colorado.
Co-DC.
Yeah, Co-DC. Mm-hmm. He's one of Co-DCs. And so for me, it's give it a year with everybody together. And I think Auburn's going to be a problem year 3 in Hugh Freeze's state. Because I think that that's usually what happens, especially when you're cleaning up. It usually takes about 2 to 3 years to get to that point. And I think that once Hugh gets the quarterback he really, really would like to have, Auburn's going to be a problem. But I didn't say I suck. I just said that for us, we've lucked out because, yes, our quarterback's new, but he's worked with our OC for over a year. They have a relationship and rapport. Skills positions, we've returned everybody. We just had one injury, but our main guys are all back. Offensive line, yes. We do have some revamping to do there, but they've all got over, our starters will have over 1,000 snaps to their career when they actually play. So, yeah, I totally get it. But that's the thing. remember, if I'm not talking up my team and not giving some hope, what am I doing here?
No,
right?
I get it. No, you need to rep your team for sure. The one thing I'm going to push back, because everything you said there, I can pretty much agree with, but I don't think Auburn needs to be fully cleaned up to beat this version of the Oklahoma Sooners. I think they can still be able to beat them, especially at home. If they're going to Norman, I think this is a different conversation, Jay. But the timing of this game, I think, is very interesting and beneficial for Auburn. Auburn will be playing Oklahoma after probably beating Arkansas and improving to 4-0. Oklahoma's traveling to Jordan-Hare Stadium to play Auburn after playing what could be a top 15 Tennessee team. Definitely top 20 unless something goes really, really strange. And you either lose to Tennessee and you're down in the dumps, and I think there's all of a sudden a ton of pressure on Oklahoma because, oh my goodness, you don't want to start 0-2 in conference. This conference that you've been wanting to join for so long, and then, who's after Auburn? Texas. And then on the other side of it, if Oklahoma does beat Tennessee, you're on cloud 9. This is it. We're here. And I think all of the pressure is on Oklahoma either way, Jay. Is that unfair to say?
Oh, no. That's 100% fair to say because it's the first road game in a new conference in an environment we've never been in. So, yes, I completely agree that's fair. The one thing that makes Oklahoma fans so bullish is this. Phil Steele put out his rankings, and he's one of the foremost experts. We all leverage his book to understand what's going on. With his book, and a few other experts outside of him have talked about this, Oklahoma is considered to have the best linebacker and secondary room in the SEC. We've got the most experience. And this is a head coach who's defensive-minded that's known for his defenses improving when he gets guys in the third year of it, right? He did that at Clemson. He did that at Oklahoma, right? His 3 stops as DC, or 2 stops as DC, and then 1 stop now as head coach. He's shown that improvement by year 3 because now he's got guys in the system for 3 years and they actually know what to do, right? They're still trying to figure it out the first couple of years. For us, our expectation is to do what every other ACC team has ever done. Leverage defense to actually win games, right? The defense has always been critical in the SEC. That's why the SEC has always been more dominant than the competition, is that, yeah, you can come in here with these high-flying offenses. At some point, we're going to shut you down and slow you down. And that's what Oklahoma's approach is. So that's the only reason why we're very bullish on our side. Yeah, the guys on the other side of the ball is young. If we can give ourselves a top 2, top 3 defense in the SEC, we're going to terrorize a lot of people.
That's a big if. Not a big if, though. I mean, if you have a top 2 or 3 defense in the SEC your first year in the conference, like that's a big if, Jay.
It's a massive if. But the good thing is we're bringing back all the experience. We're bringing back 86% of our production on the defensive side of the ball. Number 3 in the country. In a defense that works best when you have experience. So that's really the theorizing behind why we look at Oklahoma the way we do right now. It ain't because we're known for having massive offenses. We're not known for having defenses. But we brought the dude back that actually had us in top 10 defenses in his era here. And it's looking like we're getting back to that point. If Oklahoma shows up in these first 4 games and the defense is as stout as we expect, yeah, we don't expect to lose any games after that.
Yeah, so there's a lot at stake in this game, and there's a lot of things that could alter exactly what this game will mean when we get to that specific week of the season, Jay. But regardless, it's going to be crucial for either team. So what's at stake? We tell you in just a moment, right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Sooners. Jay, quick question. Just a super quick question. Can you imagine buying tickets anywhere other than our great friends at Game Time?
Absolutely not.
No way.
Best prices, best deals, and the prices go down like as the game starts. I haven't seen anybody that's been able to offer me the numbers they are at all.
No question about it. And I love that when you pull up Game Time, the price you see is actually the price you pay. I mean, how many times have you gone somewhere else and you saw, oh, this ticket's $20, and you click on it, and then by the time you get to checkout, you're spending $86 for this $20 seat. Game Time, what you see is what you pay. I love the honesty and the upfrontness of it. And then also, when you click on it, you get to see the view from your seat, which I think is a really cool feature as well.
I love it as well. I'm here for being able to know where I'm going to sit and see exactly where the seat is going to be at while also paying the price that it's actually advertised.
Yep.
I'm here for that.
I love it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege. It's all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn or Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. For your second listen, go check out our guy, Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC. Or if you want to go zoom out a little bit more, check out Spencer McLaughlin over at Locked On College Football. But everydayers know that we are your team every single day. Jay, when you talk about what's at stake for this game, the way we're talking about it on the Auburn side of this is we expect Auburn to be 4-0. We expect Auburn to take care of Cal and take care of Arkansas and say, okay, can Auburn start 5-0 when they beat Oklahoma, or if they can beat Oklahoma, to go into Georgia the following week? Can Auburn be a top 15 team heading into Athens? Like, that's the goal. And I think if they do this, if they beat Oklahoma, I think they've got a real shot at that. But that's a big if, like we discussed. To me, Auburn's over-under, according to our friends at FanDuel, is 7.5. For them to go 8-4 or better, they must beat Oklahoma at Jordan-Hare Stadium. I've said it consistently since the schedule came out. This is the most important game on Auburn's schedule. To me, that's the Auburn perspective of this game going into it.
And I can respect that because it makes sense, as you say, as you calculate out the games. And the one question I ask when it comes to playing Oklahoma, yes, it's critical that you got to win this game, but you have Georgia literally the following week. The difference between us and you all is we get a bye week before we see our rival, and we always prepare during the bye week for the rival. We don't think about Texas up until we get to that bye week because we understand the implications of that and how every game around it typically affects it. And so for us, we get that break we really, really need to go play a physical game that we're guaranteed to play, especially after playing a big physical game with you all. So for me, the question I've been wondering with Auburn is, how is that Georgia game 1 week away and traveling there? How does that truly going to affect the mindset in preparation for Oklahoma? Because looking ahead does happen. Teams do that on accident, especially coming off the high of a 4-0 start. Would that actually... Do you think that could discombobulate a few things going into the Oklahoma matchup?
It could. I don't think it's going to. Now, granted, you're talking to a fan base right now who saw their team lose to New Mexico State a year ago, the week before the Iron Bowl, which was devastating. But I don't think this is a similar thing. I mean, if you ask the average Auburn fan, and obviously the conversations with players is different, they're going to say that every game is important. But those home games do seem to matter more. Unless you're talking to an Auburn fan that lives in Georgia, I think they're going to tell you that this game that we're discussing, Auburn, Oklahoma on September 28th, means more for the 2024 Auburn Tigers than them going to Athens. I mean, now, if you win in Athens, boy, does that change everything. That changes your entire season. It may change your recruiting class. I mean, that's a program potentially changing win. But as far as 2024 goes, I think how Auburn prepares for Oklahoma is more important than how Auburn prepares for Georgia the following week. I don't know if the coaching staff's going to see it that way or not. We'll see. I mean, they're going to obviously prepare for both, but I don't think the look ahead thing is a factor here. That's just my hunch. That's just my guess.
And it makes sense, right? Like if the mindset, and it's not, let me put it this way. I don't want people to take this wrong, which everybody will.
Auburn people are already coming at you. Be careful.
Exactly. I know. I already know. They're gonna take this wrong. Basically, what you're gonna think you heard me say is that you guys are just gonna punt the Georgia game and get ready for Missouri after preparing for Oklahoma. It's not what I'm saying. But the mindset appears to be that the Georgia game's gonna be the Georgia game. It's gonna be whatever happens. Pull upset, cool. If not, it doesn't end the season. The focus is going to be knocking out these home games, which to me, I agree. Those are way more critical as far as the way that your team performs, right? You're at home in a comfortable situation. If you get knocked around at your own home spot, that's when things become an issue. Same thing for us as Sooner fans. We're looking at these home games for us as well, in which we technically only have 3 of them in the SEC because our neutral site game with Texas, we're the home team. So we don't get the extra home game like they do this year. As Georgia does the same thing with Florida or whatnot. But for us, we've got to prepare for South Carolina. Well, for, South Carolina, Alabama, as well as Tennessee. And so mind frame wise in conference, we got to win those home games. That way, if we win those home games in our non-con, that's 6 wins right there. That's right there where Vegas is saying 7.5 for us. All we got to do is sneak out at least 2 wins on the road or the neutral site game, which I expect us to push Texas around again. They're dealing with a lot of problems.
Yeah.
That's what's important. So I get you. I think for you all, Oklahoma has to be a win after Arkansas. Unless Arkansas fires their head coach before they play you all, and you got to deal with Bobby Petrino. And y'all know how players get when they get a new coach. Yeah. It seems like they get superpowers.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that a few years ago when Cadillac Williams took over for a few weeks. Here's a fun question. So FanDuel has both of the teams that we're discussing, Auburn and Oklahoma. Their win total at 7.5.
Yep.
Which team is more likely to hit the over if they lose the game that we're talking about?
I'm going to be honest. I think that both can hit the over even with the loss.
Ooh, so I don't think they can.
In a couple of formulas that I've had, I have Oklahoma losing 2 games regardless, right? And one of those games is Auburn.
Oh, interesting.
In the case, mainly because it's the first road game. I have them losing that game.
Did you change your mind on that? Because you picked Oklahoma when we did this at Media Days, right? Or am I remembering that wrong?
No, I mentioned in the media days that I think that Oklahoma could lose this game. Like this is the one game that I'm watching as a real toss-up game because it's the first road game.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
On top of that, I think the other one is potentially Alabama, depending on how Kellen DeBoer goes in. But it's a home game, the one I don't want us to lose.
Gosh,
that one is one. But the one I toss up in between there, the 2 games I toss up for Oklahoma to potentially lose is Auburn or Ole Miss. If they can go out and make sure they win one of those 2 games, there's probably only one more loss left on the schedule. That should be a 10-2 season. There's no excuse for it not to be, right? The schedule's tough, but I think that what helps a lot of our opponents, I think outside of Auburn, because you guys actually have a pretty solid matchup as far as balance on your schedule, but others like a Missouri or even like a LSU, a lot of the schedule is a little bit easier. So they don't have an excuse not to get double-digit wins for the season. But I can totally see you all walking into Columbia and knocking them off after that bye week. Perfect spot right there. So when I look at your schedule, Arkansas should be a win, like I said, unless they fired a coach. But I don't think he gets fired then. I think he gets fired after that game. Yeah. After that loss is probably when he's going to get fired. Georgia's going to be a challenge.
There's like a bye week for Arkansas, like 2 weeks after, I think. And so I think they may wait until a little bit later. Point. But yeah, we'll see.
Perfect way to install your new quote-unquote offense with the offensive coordinator you hired that basically was your old head coach that you fired because he was doing anyway.
That's right.
Love that game. But the Missouri and Kentucky back-to-back ones for you all, I don't think Missouri is going to be as much of a challenge because they've lost a lot as far as staffing. They've got a lot of things to really get integrated. And it's
People aren't
early
talking
enough.
about that, man. People aren't talking about all the stuff Missouri lost.
Right. And it's early enough for you all, too, to be able to take advantage of that. Right? I'd say if it was November, I'd say they probably should have things lined up and it should be a better game. That Kentucky game, though, they're physical all the time. I don't know how Mark Stoops does it. They're physical. It's a painful game.
They're physical against teams that stink, and I don't think Auburn's going to stink this year. I've seen them physical against Georgia.
Sure, but not win. But not win.
I don't know. I'm not a believer in Kentucky, but that has been a game where the more folks I talk to outside of Auburn, they say that one is one to watch. So maybe I should start listening.
I'll give you this.
More.
This is the one thing about why I say Kentucky's considerable.
Yeah.
Every 3 years, Mark Stoops gets a 10-win season. This is the 3rd year now that he's basically on track. If he keeps his cycle going,
he doesn't play an SEC East schedule anymore, Jay. He doesn't play an SEC schedule. He can't feast on Vanderbilt and South Carolina and a down Florida and a down Tennessee anymore. That's gone.
Oh, that's true. I mean, their tough ones are Texas, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, and Ole Miss and Georgia. Well, actually, they play everybody, so they got a gauntlet. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean they've got a real SEC schedule now. I just don't think they adjust. We'll see. All right, so who wins between Auburn and Oklahoma? We'll tell you. We all agree that it's a toss-up, but we'll tell you who wins in just a moment. Right here on this crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Sooners. All right, Jay, when you look at this Week 5 matchup, September 28th, as the Sooners head to Jordan-Hare Stadium for their first road conference game. I've been waffling back and forth on this all offseason. Sounds like you have as well. In the last week or so, I've gained a lot of confidence. We call it the boog at Auburn. I might be booging a little bit.
Little booging. Okay.
I think I'm booging just a hair, but we'll, I think Auburn wins this game. And I've been pretty consistent in saying that they weren't. Right now, as we record this, I'm saying Auburn beats Oklahoma on the 28th.
Okay. My confidence is still on the toss-up level. I think Oklahoma has a chance to pull this one out, and it's going to have to be all defense. Mm-hmm. That's probably the one, or if Jackson Arnold decides to lose his mind on the road. But I know that the environment's going to be hostile, so I'm not going to rely on him just because he's, true sophomore, unless he decides to have a Drake May type season, which is kind of what I'm seeing in his trajectory based on his skill set. I just don't want him to be a violent runner and running people over. But I do see him, he has the skill set to do what Drake May did at North Carolina, right? But for us, it's going to be defense. So my question is going to be, what does that Auburn offense look like against our defense? And I lean our direction because of experience. I think that the experience piece is going to be what's going to help us to be able to keep this a very close game. I can totally see this being like 16-13. Easily.
I think it's going to be lower scoring. I'm there with you because the strength of Oklahoma is the same as the strength of Auburn. It's defense and it's experience the same way. I mean, you talked about Oklahoma's experienced linebackers. Auburn's right in that same boat. They've gotten their snaps at other places and they've come to Auburn. And so, I mean, you've got guys that are going to be coming off the bench. Dori Mausi, who's got 1,000 snaps in his career at Duke, I believe. And then Gote, the most recent addition they brought from Maryland. He's on like 22nd year of college football. He's played a ton of snaps at Maryland. So, I'm with you. Whatever the over-under is for this game, I'm probably taking the under on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Yeah, I think so. Because, I think Auburn's defense is going to get the help of the home field advantage just by the nature of it being the type of game that it's going to be in the conference. And so that's going to hinder a new quarterback, a young quarterback taking his first road start, as well as an offensive line that still probably doesn't have that unity just because it's going to be early on in the year. And so I do think Auburn will get the benefit from that. But the flip side of this, when Auburn's on offense, like they've got a quarterback that's played a ton of snaps, but he's throwing to guys, a lot of these guys who have been on campus for 5 minutes. You have Cam Coleman, who's the freshman phenom. He did go through spring, and every time there's cameras around, somebody catches him doing something just absolutely ridiculous.
Absurd.
Yeah, I mean, he's special. There's no question about it, but how often can you get him the football against a talented defense like Oklahoma? Keandre Lambert-Smith, the transfer wide receiver from Penn State, he got here over the summer. He's a late portal addition. He didn't go through spring at Auburn, and so we'll see what happens with that. He kind of messed his ankle up last week. It seems like he's fine, but they are being a little cautious with bringing him back, it seems like. And then Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, Bryce Kane, these are other freshman receivers that Auburn really likes, but are they going to be ready by the end of September to play SEC level football just because they haven't been here that long? So to me, it's going to be interesting to see what all the Auburn offense looks like and who is a part of the Auburn offense, because that's the biggest question of fall camp is, all right, you feel good about the line, the offensive line, you feel good about your running backs, but the guys that they're throwing to, they're all talented. Talent's not the question, but it's who's the coaching staff going to put in the game because they feel like they're ready. That's what it comes down to.
It's all that cohesion and chemistry. That's the one thing that's going to be that that's the thing that jumps out the most when I even think about even us, right? For our line, they have over 1,000 snaps across the board. The bigger question is how much chemistry would they have? And that's really important with offensive lines, right? So as long as they can get Jackson Arnold just enough time, he has chemistry with the receivers. With Nick Anderson, 6'4", 220 wide receiver, he had 10 touchdowns last season, almost 800 yards receiving. And then the phenom, Deion Burks, who was number 50 on Bruce Feldman's freak list, right? I mean, he's 5'9", 5'10"-ish, 190 pounds, but he bench presses 400, squats almost 600. It's kind of absurd, the strength the dude has, but he's going to be the dude that's going to take that slot route, and he's going to be the one that's either going to burn people or he's going to catch it over the middle on a regular basis. And so for Oklahoma, we have some of those young piece, the running back room. Gavin Sawchuk, of course, he ran for 700 yards last year. He's expecting to go for 1,000, one of the fastest dudes in the country. And then Javonte Barnes, who was a freshman phenom, playing against Florida State in the bowl game. Both him and Sawchuk had 100 yards. Injured most of last year. They said he looks even better than what he did his freshman year. So with him healthy, we got our two backs. We've got our wide receiver room. The line and the quarterback, of course, is the question. I know for you all, picking up Jarian Thompson from Texas at safety, I know that him playing against Oklahoma kind of helps a little bit understanding the wide receiver room because it's the exact same guys. Sure. Farouk's still there. Andrew Anthony's going to be back and healthy. So we've got about 6 receivers that'll be returning that's going to be healthy from last year that he'll be able to at least point out things. But I know that secondary is still pretty inexperienced. That's the one thing that helps me on my offensive side is our wide receivers are going to just get there. We just got to make sure Jackson Arnold has just enough time to launch it. But that pickup of Phil Bleedy on the defensive line, we were talking to him as well. Yeah. That's a solid experience piece to add to your defensive line that's going to be able to help to give you guys like the experience needed there. Like I said, linebacker room is solid. They're aged. They're good. For us, our defensive line is now our question is as long as we can get the pressure that we need. The biggest concern I have going against this game against Auburn, Hunter. Yeah. Jarquez. That run game. Yeah. Jarquez Hunter is going to be is where I'm at. Okay. We have to prevent you all from running it down the throat, which is the good thing. We've got 6 linebackers that's ready to play. We just got to be able to get downhill and hit. The question is going to be, what do we look like after Tennessee health-wise? Because once you start getting into about that 5th week, that's when you start seeing attrition kick in. Yeah. How do we all look health-wise going into that game? It's going to be a good one, though. I'll tell you that. And I stick to my 16-13, 20-10. I sense under 30 points combined in this game just because it should be a defensive battle.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. Jay, how can all the Auburn folks check out all the Oklahoma stuff you got going on?
Yeah, join us over at Locked On Sooners. You know, we're dropping some, of course, daily for you all. Come hang out. We're not, like I said, what you think you heard ain't what you heard. I didn't say Auburn's going to be bad. I said you're on the trajectory needed for a guy like Hugh Freeze, who has SEC experience. So, yeah, come hang out with us. We'll talk more Auburn, especially as the week gets closer. We're excited about that game, and I plan on being in town, so I'm ready to check out the hospitality there in Auburn, Alabama.
Yep. We will welcome you with open arms, my friend. Hey, be sure to check out Locked On Auburn wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channels. We'll see you next time on Locked On Auburn and Locked On Sooners.